Hello everyone, it's Kate the English teacher here again with another lesson in grammar. Now I want to thank you first of all for all of your comments and questions to the previous videos. I really appreciate all of them, especially the comments that are very positive. I really appreciate them. And I have taken some of your concerns into consideration, and a lot of you have mentioned that you would like to have written information with my lessons. So as you notice, my handy dandy whiteboard, that's as high tech as I can get because I'm not really computer savvy, but I do this in the classroom every day and I'm very comfortable with the whiteboard, so hopefully you're gonna enjoy my lessons on a whiteboard a little bit more. So last time I talked to you guys about the simple present tense. Hopefully you have seen that video already. And now you're probably wondering, how do I use the past tense for things that happened in the past? Well, don't fret because today's lesson is on simple past tense. Now, before we continue, I want to give you a really good tip. For every single one of my videos, you can click on a button down below, which is the CC button. That is your closed captioning button. If you press on that button on your YouTube video, you will be able to actually see what I am saying down below. It will come to you as closed captioning. That means you will have some kind of subtitles, so you can read along with what I am saying, which is great because, as I mentioned before, when you engage your visual and your auditory system at the same time, you learn much better, which is also why we got this handy dandy whiteboard. So let's begin. When using the simple past tense, three things have to be true grammatically in order for this to take place. Rule number one is that it has to be an action that started, meaning it began, in the past, and it also ended in the past, so it must be finished. The reason I say this is because if an action is still happening, you will be using a different tense called the past continuous or past progressive, which is going to come later on in a future lesson, so look out for that. However, it has to be an action which started and ended in the past. For example, I cooked last night. I cooked last night, meaning I am no longer cooking today. I'm not cooking right now. I started it yesterday and I finished it yesterday. I am no longer cooking. So I cooked in the past, not now. A second thing that must be true is that it had to have happened at some particular time in the past. For example, I cooked last night. Okay? It happened at a particular time. I cooked last night. I studied last Sunday. I studied last Sunday. I did it last Sunday. I'm no longer doing it. It's done. Okay? The third condition is that it can be used for repeated actions. But for that, you have to use a frequency indicator. Frequency indicator, you ask? Well, pretty simple. You just have to say how often it happened. So for example, every Sunday. I jogged every Sunday. I went to church every Sunday. I went to the mosque every Friday. It happened every Friday up until today. It's not happening today, but it happened every so often in the past. So let's review these again. They have to have been actions that started and ended in the past, they had to have happened at a particular time in the past, such as last week, last night, last month, last year. And the third rule is that it can be used for repeated actions, meaning that they happen every so often, or they happen every Friday, every Saturday, but you have to use it with a frequency indicator, meaning every Sunday, every Monday, and so on. So when changing these sentences to the simple past tense, you are only going to be conjugating, meaning changing the verb. No other word in the sentence gets changed. This is called conjugation. Conjugation means changing the verb or the grammatical tense. So if you look at the rule, the general rule is that you have a subject plus a verb plus ed. This is with things called regular verbs. We will get into irregular verbs a little bit later on. But for regular verbs, all you do is have the subject plus the verb plus ed added onto the verb. So for example, I cooked dinner yesterday. I cooked dinner yesterday. You will see that you have the subject, which is I, cooked is the verb, and you have the ed added onto it. I cooked dinner yesterday. Nothing else got changed except for the verb cook. If you are cooking right now, you will say, I am cooking right now, but because this is an action that happened yesterday and ended yesterday, you would change the verb cook to cooked. I cooked dinner yesterday. Pretty simple. Does it go with our other rules? Yes, because it started yesterday and it ended yesterday. You have a particular time in the past, such as yesterday, that it happened. Okay? Example number 2. She watched TV every night last week. She is your subject, watched is your verb, and you have the ed added on to the verb watch. If you are watching right now, you will say, I am watching TV, but because it started and happened yesterday, I watched TV yesterday or whenever it happened. Does it go along with our rules? Let's check. She watched TV every night last week. First of all, we changed the verb to watched and added an ed. We have a particular time, every night, last week. Also, you have a frequency indicator, meaning every night. How often? Every single night she watched TV. And when? At a particular time? Last week. So your frequency indicator here is every night, and a particular time is last week. So we have all the rules covered. So she watched TV every night last week. Follows every single one of our rules. Pretty simple, right? Now hang on, because there are certain verbs that are changed a little bit differently. It still follows the same general rule of adding an ed. However, in this case, you're going to be adding an ied, and I will explain in a moment. The teacher copied the tests last night. Okay? You still have your subject, which is the teacher. You have your verb, which is copied. The tests last night. When did it happen? At a particular time? Last night. So it's done, it's finished. It still follows every single rule. The only difference here is that our verb, copy, ends with a y. Anytime your verb ends with a y at the end, you must change it to an ied, not just ed. Therefore, the general rule is anytime your verb ends with a Y, you take off the Y and add an IED. So the verb copy is C-O-P-Y. You take off the Y and you spell it C-O-P-I-E-D. It goes from copy to copied. Same with marry. Married. I got married last year, for example. Okay? Marry is M-A-R-R-Y. However, you would change it to M-A-R-R-I-E-D. Or to carry bags. I carried my bags yesterday. It goes from C-A-R-R-Y to C-A-R-R-I-E-D. I hope you're getting this point so far, because we're going to get into some much tougher stuff coming up. So hang on. So now that you have learned about the simple past using regular verbs, it is time to get into something a little bit more complicated, which are irregular verbs, meaning verbs which are not regular. So if you look at my example here, I wrote, I eated dinner last night. Does that sound wrong to you? It should, because it is wrong. The word eat is an irregular verb, and therefore you cannot simply add an ed to it. It has to be conjugated or changed completely differently. So the correct way to say it is, I ate dinner last night. So incorrect is, I eated dinner last night, and correct way to say it is, I ate dinner last night. Again, that is because the verb eat is irregular and therefore becomes ate. Now, there are a lot of verbs in the English language which are irregular, but I will just give you the most common ones today. However, if you go down below into the comments, I will give you a list of the 50 most commonly used irregular verbs in the English language. So hopefully you can memorize at least those for now. Now, I mentioned memorizing, and that is because the rule to irregular verbs is that there is no rule, unfortunately. It is that tricky part of English which says that you just have to memorize. How would you know if it's a regular or irregular verb if you're not used to the English language yet? Well, that is where your handy dandy English dictionary comes in. You will have to look up the word in a dictionary or even on your phone and see if it is a regular or irregular verb, and then conjugate correspondingly. So, for example, if you look at I am, the verb am in the dictionary is irregular and can only be conjugated to was. So I am cooking dinner right now, or I was cooking dinner last night. I was cooking dinner last night. Or simply, I cooked dinner last night. Now, the reason that there's a difference in conjugation is because I'm trying to let you see the verb is, not the verb cooked. So, another rule is that you cannot simply add an ed to irregular verbs. You just can't. Now I'm going to show you the most common ones that we use in the English language, and hopefully you can memorize some of those. So for example, am becomes was. Are becomes were. Come becomes came. Tell becomes told. Think becomes thought. Give becomes gave. See becomes saw. Take becomes took. Meet becomes met. And choose becomes chose. Now these are very close, so be careful because there's only one O, so instead of choose, it becomes chose. So for example, with the verb tell, I told my mother last night that I was going out. I told my mother. I think I will go to the movies. Or yesterday, I thought I was going to the movies. I thought I was going to the movies. I see the sunshine outside right now. Yesterday, I saw the sunshine outside. So as you can see, there are many different ways that you can conjugate verbs depending if they are regular or irregular verbs. Now in the following video, which I will link very shortly, I will be talking about how to make negative phrases with the simple past tense, as well as how to create questions using the simple past tense as well, as the rules are somewhat different. So stay tuned for that video. Until then, see ya. Bye-bye.